Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. So imagine dropping 4,000 people into this massive floating city where, literally, federal health agencies track every single time someone visits the medical center for a stomachache.
Right. That operational control is just absolutely, it's practically military grade.
Exactly. It gets scrutinized down to the decimal point. But then, your only job as a guest walking onto that vessel is to feel wildly, boundlessly free.
Which is such a wild contrast when you really think about it.
It really is. So for today's deep dive, we're unpacking that exact paradox of the travel world. We're looking at the intense, highly monitored reality of keeping thousands of people healthy at sea, juxtaposed against an industry racing to provide these thrilling, unscripted cultural immersions.
Because that tension between total control and the illusion of total freedom is really what defines the modern cruise industry.
Right. So we've got a roadmap today with 3 very different stops. First, we're doing a hard reality check on federal health monitoring aboard a brand new Caribbean megaship. Like what actually happens mechanically when that protective bubble is breached.
And then we're looking at how massive ocean brands are completely redefining their footprint on European rivers.
Yeah, trying to capture a totally new kind of explorer. And finally, we'll look at a splashy new restaurant concept that's transforming Mediterranean evening dining. They're basically turning the ship's architecture into a daily theatrical set.
It's going to be a fun one. Let's start with that absolute control aspect. We really need to look at the recent data coming off Princess Cruises' Star Princess.
Yeah, and for context, this is a ship that just entered service in late 2025. It's currently sailing Western Caribbean itineraries out of Fort Lauderdale.
Exactly. And during its March 7th to March 14th, 2026 sailing, that operational bubble was definitely tested.
Oh, big time. I have the numbers right here. Out of 4,307 guests on board, 104 reported being sick. That hits 2.4% of the passenger population.
Right. And then on the crew side,
Out of 1,561 crew members, 49 fell ill. So that sits at 3.1%. We're looking at 153 total cases over the span of a single week.
and with symptoms like vomiting and diarrhea, that heavily points toward norovirus.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at those numbers, hitting that 2.4% mark on the passenger side, that's not just a minor issue. That automatically triggers the CDC's vessel sanitation program protocols.
Right, the VSP. And that pivot is immediate. The ship basically ceases being just a vacation asset and essentially becomes a federally monitored health environment.
Which sounds so intense. What does that mechanical response actually look like on board? Because the crew doesn't just, wipe down tables a bit more frequently.
Oh, no, not at all. They initiate this highly rigid, tiered, isolation-based protocol. So anyone who's symptomatic is strictly quarantined.
Just to stop the transmission vectors in those high-density spaces, right? Like the theaters and dining rooms.
Exactly. And then the environmental team shifts to hospital-grade disinfection of all the high-traffic areas. They're constantly hitting frequently touched surfaces. They even begin collecting stool specimens from the ill individuals.
Wait, stool specimens? On a cruise?
Yeah, they have to send them for laboratory testing to definitively isolate the viral strain. It is a massive undertaking.
That is wild. And the logistics of turning that ship around at the end of the sailing are just staggering. The Star Princess actually had to delay its subsequent departure from Fort Lauderdale.
Right, to facilitate a massive terminal, deep clean, and an environmental assessment by the CDC.
But, this is where I think we need to look analytically at the data visibility. Let's unpack this for a second. If 150 people get a stomach bug in a 4,000-room Vegas mega resort over the course of a week, it barely makes a ripple.
Nobody even notices.
Exactly. Nobody's shutting down a Vegas casino floor for a federally mandated deep clean because a fraction of a percent of the guests got sick. It feels like the visibility of the cruise industry's data is routinely weaponized against it.
Yeah, perpetuating that tired stigma of ships being floating petri dishes.
Yes. The Vegas hotel comparison perfectly illustrates that disparity in reporting standards.
Because, look, norovirus is highly contagious in literally any close contact setting. Nursing homes, daycares, college dorms, land-based resorts. It spreads rapidly wherever human beings share dining venues.
Right. The variable isn't the physical environment of a ship.
Exactly. The variable is the presence of a captive, federally mandated medical center tracking every single case. If we look at the broader epidemiological context, norovirus is the leading cause of vomiting and diarrhea outbreaks in the U.S.
It drives roughly 685 million cases globally each year, right?
Yes, 685 million. Yet, cruise-related incidents account for only about 1% of reported cases nationally.
1%. 1% of cases driving 99% of the public anxiety. It just proves that the outbreaks are identified simply because close contact transmission is most likely to be tracked in that specific environment.
Right, they actually have the ironclad tracking infrastructure. The CDC knows exactly what is happening on these ships. They logged 2 such outbreaks early this year, including a Holland America ship.
And didn't they track something like 23 gastrointestinal outbreaks in 2025?
Yeah, and 17 of those were norovirus. But when you consider the thousands of sailings happening globally every single month, those numbers actually reflect an incredibly secure, monitored environment rather than some outsized risk.
Totally. That rigorous tracking is the foundational infrastructure that allows the industry to safely transport millions of people.
But the operational goal, of course, is to make you, the guest, entirely blind to that infrastructure. The cruise line wants to manage the risk while you just manage your itinerary.
Right, the invisible safety net.
Right.
But that intense federal tracking and the sheer scale of that 4,000-passenger megaship model is exactly why a growing demographic of travelers feels a bit restricted by the ocean bubble.
Yeah, they want something more authentic. Unmonitored exploration.
Exactly. So to capture those guests, massive ocean brands are being forced to completely rethink their footprint. They're realizing they can't always provide intimate cultural connections when docking at a huge industrial port miles from a city center.
Which is driving this massive expansion into European river cruising. Because there, you can literally walk right off the gangway into the heart of a local culture.
Yeah, removing the friction between the vessel and the destination. And Celebrity Cruises is making a highly aggressive play here. They have a new destination discovery program for their 2027 and 2028 river seasons.
And the market response just completely validates that strategy. Their initial Rhine and Danube journeys sold out in less than 6 minutes during presale.
6 minutes, wow.
Yeah.
That velocity of demand indicates that travelers are absolutely starved for an elevated, seamless integration with these ports.
Yeah, Laura Hodges-Bethridge, the president of Celebrity, is aiming to connect guests to Europe more personally by fundamentally restructuring how shore excursions are bundled.
They are completely dismantling that traditional, follow the umbrella tour model.
Oh, totally. They're grouping their included shore experiences into 4 distinct categories.
Right, so first is the Storyteller series. This is led by cultural insiders rather than standard guides reading a script.
Yeah, they offer experiences like navigating Amsterdam's lesser-seen canals with a captain whose family has worked those specific waterways for generations.
Or exploring Prague's brewing traditions led by an actual local brewer. I love that.
It's so much better. Then you have the Skillmaster series, which focuses on a hands-on creation.
Oh, this is the one where you could be cooking traditional Hungarian recipes in the actual home kitchen of a local grandmother in Budapest, right?
Yes. Or taking a Van Gogh painting techniques class led by a local artist in Amsterdam.
That sounds incredible. But the third one, the Keys to the City series, is perhaps the most operationally innovative.
Yeah, this caters to the traveler who really despises group tours. It's a self-guided digital route using a platform that provides curated maps based on your specific interests like art, food, architecture.
But the brilliance of it is a physical support network. They actually station local hosts at strategic points along the route to provide behind-the-scenes access.
Right, so it merges the freedom of solo exploration with the safety net of a curated VIP touch.
And finally, there's the Celebrity Takeover series. This serves as the absolute centerpiece of the sailing. It's a once-per-itinerary, bespoke, private access event at a major European attraction.
Basically renting out a castle or a museum entirely for the ship's guests for an evening.
They're also layering on optional multi-day land extensions, right? In Prague and Budapest starting in 2027, and Amsterdam in 2028, complete with premium hotels and dedicated concierges.
They are. But looking at the scale of this, I see a massive operational contradiction here.
How so?
Well, Celebrity plans to launch with 2 ships in 2027. But by 2028, they project a fleet of 5 ships running 160 itineraries across 50 destinations.
Ah, I see where you're going. The moment you try to mass-produce an intimate experience, like cooking in a Budapest grandmother's kitchen across 160 sailings, you risk destroying the very authenticity you're marketing.
Exactly. How do you scale a hyper-local, intimate encounter without it turning into an artificial, high-throughput theme park attraction.
That is the defining challenge of scaling premium hospitality.
Right, and they avoid that theme park effect through decentralized logistics. So instead of sending 50 people to one grandmother's kitchen, they build a localized network of dozens of culinary hosts.
Oh, so dispatching guests in micro groups of 4 or 6.
Yeah, which requires an immense localized vendor management system. For an ocean brand entering a European river market dominated by legacy players, bundling this complex local access into the base fare is really their only play to establish premium dominance.
They're breaking the traditional cruise bubble by actively managing and elevating your experience outside of it.
Exactly.
But what if the logistics of stepping into a foreign port are just too unpredictable? Or, the itinerary simply demands a sea day?
Then the alternative is perfectly synthesizing that destination and bringing it directly onto the ship.
Which brings us to Virgin Voyages. They're demonstrating exactly how to execute this by debuting a brand new Indian restaurant called Ariya on their adults-only ship, Valiant Lady.
And the timeline for this is incredibly tight. The venue opens in late May 2026, launching literally the moment the ship finishes a scheduled dry dock from May 9th to the 25th.
That aligns perfectly with the ship's European season, home porting in Barcelona and later Portsmouth in the UK. But the architectural and operational execution of Ariya is what's truly fascinating to me.
Oh, it's brilliant because they're not tearing the ship's superstructure apart to weld in a brand new restaurant footprint. They are utilizing dynamic evening conversion.
Right. During the day, the space operates as Razzle Dazzle, which is their established breakfast and brunch venue.
But as evening approaches, the entire 220-seat room flips to become Ariya for dinner service.
Flipping a 220-seat room every single day sounds like an operational nightmare for the crew. I mean, think about it. You're completely changing the ambiance, the table settings, the lighting, the soundscape, and the entire kitchen line's prep stations.
And all in a 2-hour window between the end of lunch and the beginning of dinner service.
Yeah. That requires a level of modular flexibility that traditional ship galleys simply aren't built for.
Well, it relies entirely on smart sensory architecture. Modern ship design allows for environmental transformations that don't require physical heavy lifting.
I like the lighting.
Exactly. Virgin uses programmable LED lighting matrices to drop the brightness and shift the color palette to warm spice market tones.
Oh, that's smart. And I read they pipe in a curated Indian classical soundtrack through directional audio systems to actually mask the ambient ship noise.
Yeah, and they use decorative screens that drop down or slide into place to frame semi-private dining spaces. It creates the feeling of being inside a traditional jewelry box.
So the heavy lifting is done by the technology, allowing the culinary team to focus entirely on the menu transition.
Which is huge. And the menu is designed to completely bridge that cultural distance.
Virgin actually partnered with Indie Culinaire and chef Maneet Chauhan to develop the concept. Fun fact, the name Ariya actually ties back to Richard Branson's great-great-grandmother who traveled through coastal Tamil Nadu.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a great detail.
Yeah, and the sensory immersion starts the second you sit down. You get a welcome sip of jaljeera, which is a chilled tamarind and cumin drink designed to awaken the palate.
And from there, they lean heavily into chat, that crispy, tangy street food profile. They feature dishes like puffed rice and avocado chat.
The main courses sound amazing, too. They anchor the authenticity of the experience with a lamb shank biryani and Goan curried mussels to satisfy the coastal flavor profiles.
Ooh, yes. And a Malabar coconut crab cake, plus a tandoori pistachio-crusted snapper.
I'm getting hungry just talking about it.
Yeah.
But the beverage curation is just as critical to the immersion as the culinary side.
Absolutely. They're importing Indian small batch spirits and executing a traditional chai tea service to match the destination perfectly.
Looking at the cocktail list, it is incredibly technical. The Maharani morning blends rose, cardamom, and sparkling wine.
And then there's the saffron and silk, which incorporates scotch with toasted coconut smoke. That actually adds a literal theatrical element to the table service.
I love when they do that. They also offer a Bangalore old-fashioned utilizing jaggery and cardamom. And they haven't forgotten the zero-proof market either. They offer a highly curated, non-alcoholic option called the Seventh Leaf.
Looking at the timeline and the heavy investment in this sensory design, it really feels like Virgin isn't just trying to feed their current passengers.
No, not at all. They're using this highly specific dining experience as bait to convert adults who would otherwise never consider booking a cruise.
Exactly. Nirmal Sevaramutu, Virgin's CEO, actually noted that a signature restaurant like Ariya is increasingly the primary catalyst for a booking.
especially for a brand that targets an adults-only demographic. The traditional buffet or generic steakhouse is just obsolete for them.
Right. Guests are willing to sail out of Barcelona or the UK specifically because for 2 hours a night they are completely transported by the flavors, the toasted coconut smoke, and the architectural illusion of India.
The food effectively becomes a secondary itinerary.
It really is the ultimate manifestation of the industry's dual nature.
Yeah, you have the vessel itself physically transporting you across the Mediterranean, backed by a federal health apparatus, meticulously tracking every variable to ensure the structural safety of the voyage.
And simultaneously, you have an entirely synthesized sensory environment on the plate and in the room, designed to make you completely forget you're on a highly regulated machine in the middle of the ocean.
Which raises a fascinating question for the future of the industry. If cruise lines are perfecting the ability to simulate an Indian spice market inside a steel hull using modular design, directional soundscapes, and smoke-infused cocktails.
How long until the physical destination becomes secondary?
Exactly. As immersive technology, virtual reality, and sensory architecture continue to evolve, we might see a future where the ship doesn't even need to dock in a foreign port for you to feel like you've explored it.
The vessel itself could become the entire world, making the actual ocean outside the window completely irrelevant to the cultural immersion happening inside.
Now that is something to think about on your next vacation. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.